The Garden Report is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a studio edition of The Garden Report. The studio today has to be TD Garden. He's Josue Pavon.
I like it.
Noa Dalzell here from Celtics Blog. And we're just going to talk about where the series is at now after 1-1. Josue and I just recapped Game 2. Now it's 1-1, Noah. A lot of people thought it might be a sweep here. 5-game series obviously still in play now. But after what you saw from the Heat responding in Game 2, the adjustments and the shooting that they displayed here, and that could go one of two ways, right? Is that going to continue? Could it continue? Or is it going to come down to earth and we'll see 3 more games like Game 1? It's tough to tell because Celtics in Game 1 shot out of this world too. So you have 2, I don't know about anomaly shooting kind of games here, but 2 above your level kind of games.
Yeah, I mean, my mentality and my take on the Heat Celtics this whole time has been that this is going to be a difficult series and it's not going to be a 4 or 5 game series. And there wasn't really a lot of analytical logic to that because this is a team that's super shorthanded and has not had a great regular season. But we have multiple years of postseason records to go off of at this point. And, you know, they had a 6-game series, they had 2 7-game series. There's no reason to not expect that to be the case this year, despite the personnel, discrepancies, because we know this is a Miami team that comes out prepared every single time. And we knew they were going to come out much stronger than they did in Game 1. Joe talked about it, the players talked about it, and you saw it right away. So to me, this wasn't a surprise.
You had 5 games, right, Josue?
Yes.
Do you still feel good about that? Are you thinking this could be 6 or 7?
It could go 6, potentially, or even 7, really. I mean, look,
7 would be scary.
It would be, but for this Celtics team, would it really surprise you? I mean, look.
It would surprise me.
I get what you're saying, Noah, about last year's team, but I just think the biggest difference for this year is just having to face a team like the Miami Heat in the first round.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
It's going to be 08?
Well, I'm not saying. Well, I hope not. But hey, would it really surprise you? Because look, the Miami Heat are going to put up a fight. But I just feel like I can't help but say if that's the case, then the Celtics really made some huge mistakes. And what I mean by that is to do this over and over the way the Miami Heat won Game 2 is also difficult. You know, I think that's a part that not people are talking about enough. Yes, the Celtics are favored to win this series, and sure, you know, everyone might have a different prediction, but overall, a lot of us are predicting the Celtics from a national standpoint or local. But you have to remember, the Miami Heat are going to bring it every single game, every single quarter. You know, every play matters with these guys. And I just think when you look at adjustments and mental toughness, all the stuff that we've been sort of questioning the Celtics team about whenever we saw the bad side, you know, on those losses throughout the course of the regular season or the way they used to blow humongous leads at times, you know, you wonder if they're going to bounce back the same way they have all season long in a best-of-7 series. I think they will. I think they have enough to finish the Heat, but like Noah said, I don't think it's going to be as easy as everyone anticipated.
It's interesting, too, because Joe prepared everyone, I think, with some of his commentary going into the series that you can't expect the playoffs to go a certain way or even a series to go a certain way. Now, I didn't see them dropping a game on their home court here, but it's part of what he talked about, that things could happen, things could come up, and the Celtics might have to win in a way that people don't quite expect. And he kind of scoffed at the end of the press conference there, saying 1 loss is adversity in the playoffs here. He doesn't quite look at it that way. He expected there to be losses, letdowns. The question is it acceptable? Because one thing I feel here is that obviously the Celtics have the talent advantage, the personnel, even some of the schemes, or at least the way they approach the game, should work in the Celtics' favor over 7 games, or however long this goes. The fact that the Heat, through effort, through just freely getting up shots, and all the other stuff we talk about, physicality, those intangible things that might come into play here, you have to bring those too if you're Boston. And that's where the letdown is going to frustrate people if it's unnecessary, if you go 6, 7 games because you just sleepwalk through this series expecting to win it.
Yeah, and I think this is where the media and the fans both have a different mentality than the actual players. I don't think Jason Tatum is looking at Miami and saying this needs to be a sweep because we are so much more talented than them. I think he's looking at Miami and thinking this is going to be a very difficult series.
Yeah, he talked about that tonight.
Yeah, they're going to be able to adjust to Porzingis. They're going to be able to do things that they haven't had to face all season. And we were talking about this a few weeks ago. I still think this is the best possible first round matchup that they could have.
Right, agreed.
Because every single thing that can be thrown at them this playoffs, they will see against Miami. Every coverage, every things that they hadn't thought they would experience, and they're going to have to adjust to it. And if they can't, then this will be a really tough first round elimination.
Yeah.
But I still think it's the best thing that could happen to them as far as just preparing them for a deep playoff run ultimately, and for a potential finals matchup against Denver that we know they're going to be super prepared and super talented and have everything really in their favor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry, not to cut you off.
No,
I was
no.
just going to say, it is what's best for them. I mean, if you can't get past a team like the Miami Heat, I don't like their chances to even beat a team like the Nuggets or whoever's waiting for them in the NBA Finals. You know, for fans, and like you said, Noah, like they're looking ahead saying like, oh, this is going to happen no matter one way or another. But you have to actually play these games, and it's the test that's gonna ultimately, create whatever version of the Celtics that they need to be to get to the finals. You know what I mean? So I think, I've always said the Miami Heat is not only going to give them a fight, and it's great for them to have as a first round matchup, a first round opponent, because one, the talent level is on your side. You should be able to beat a team like the Miami Heat, but they're going to beat you in so many different ways, or they're going to challenge you in so many different ways. And you look across the Eastern Conference, and the injuries and stuff doesn't help to a lot of these teams that it's their star players, and Miami Heat is in the same boat. However, I just don't think from a tactical standpoint the other teams could put up a similar fight than what we're seeing from the Miami Heat. You know what I mean?
It's interesting because to have to shoot at this level to get a 10-point win, and obviously it could have dipped a little bit and they still would have squeaked this out depending on how crunch time goes, but to shoot at this level and just squeak out a 10-point win, that's going to be an interesting dynamic going forward in this series. We are, of course, brought to you by Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS is how you're going to get a 100% matching bonus up to $100 there. You just pick 2 players, up to 6, build your daily fantasy sports team, and it just goes. See what points, assists, any one of those, you go more or less on them, and you're off. It's that simple, and it's a ton of fun, especially during the playoffs. Check out basketball, hockey, baseball, and all the rest going on right now at prizepicks.com/CLNS. So I do only worry about what's going on here if there is another anomaly shooting night or the Heat figure out another way to win a game, and that'll send you back to Miami. And the one thing I didn't want to see, obviously I didn't expect this to be easy. I didn't expect the Celtics to breeze through the series. But the one thing I didn't want to see is it go an extra game than it needs to. And does an injury pop up at that point? Does extra fatigue come into play? Because there's a difference to me between, you're expecting this to be easy and a sweep, and that's just not how it's going to go. And you should take care of business when you should, just to get out of a situation where you're playing an extra game. It's just the Atlanta series from a year ago. That shouldn't have been a 6-game series.
Yeah,
should have been 5.
I just view them in a different category than like in Atlanta. I don't think this is one of those first round matchups that you're like,
but with
we
no
need to get
Butler and Rozier.
I don't think it matters, honestly. Like this is and this isn't even like a basketball take, because you look on the court, I mean, you have Jovic out there, you have Hackes. I mean, these are young, unproven guys that have never been here before, and it just doesn't matter, right? And we've seen it every single year. Like, who was Caleb Martin before last year? Who was Gabe Vincent?
Back.
He's definitely back. So to me, it's just, I think we have to take logic a little bit out when we talk about this matchup, and we have to understand that from a tactical standpoint, like, there are things that Miami can do that there is no other team in the league that is going to be able to make adjustments at that rate. And just that alone is going to make this super difficult. To me, the thing that stood out the most in a negative way was Kristaps Porzingis and the way they were able to take him out of his flow. Like, I'm not overreacting to the made threes. I think that's, we've seen it before. It's not, it's not anything crazy, and it's not anything that's not going to course correct most likely. But the adjustments they made on him were real, ultimately. Like, it wasn't just that he missed easy shots. Like, he was uncomfortable the entire night.
Right.
But how much of it is...
That changed everything.
Obviously, we know what Miami's going to do, the adjustments, the physicality, and mindset and all of that. But how much of it is on Boston not doing enough in a game like this to be able to bridge that gap, whatever it is you think it is, the effort, the adjustments? Because I do think it falls on them if they're going to go long in this series, because we've seen the level at which they've dominated this year. And obviously, the playoffs are different. It's going to be tighter. Against this team, you're expecting more of a fight, more contested games, just based on the history, like Noah said. But this team's supposed to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, they're different because they have different guys that can score 20-plus points on any given night. I mean, we saw it in Game 2, right? Whether it's Bam, whether it's Martin, whether it's Hero, who put together, if you ask me, the most important game of his career.
I'm saying the Celtics different this year.
Right, but I thought you meant compared to last year.
No, he are pretty similar.
Well, Porzingis is a big part of that, in the sense of their offense and what he's able to do with plays that don't necessarily end with him scoring, but just him being factored into it, whether it's from the top of the key, from the give and go, or the 3-point shot. I mean, that's the kind of guy you want to make sure is always a factor in this series, especially against the Heat. And it's not just about the one-on-one matchup against Bam, because that wasn't the case in Game 2, right? It was a collective effort of guys that slowed him down and made him uncomfortable. He never found his offensive rhythm throughout Game 2. But, I mean, looking into Game 3, though, like when you look back at other series, when it was, like you said, the Atlanta Hawks, and it was Trae Young who put together that huge game that pushed, Game 6 before the Celtics eventually closed it out. With the Miami Heat, it's not that simple, but you look at the Celtics' best players, the Tatums and the Browns and the Porzingis. I mean, Mazzulla has to find a way to always have those guys going. And, with Porzingis, okay, Game 2, the Miami Heat figured it out, or at least for one game they did. Mazzulla has to, now it's his turn to figure out, how do you make sure Porzingis has a better game than what we saw in Game 2? How do you make sure that Porzingis is constantly a part of the offense and making Bam get out of the paint, forcing him to be uncomfortable? Like, those are the kind of stuff that I feel like Mazzulla can make. Those are the kind of adjustments, I should say, Mazzulla and Celtics can make, and I think the players will respond. But yeah, that's when it takes over. That's when they take over, and that's when it's like, okay, when they're out there, they have to read the defenses and make the right switches and make the adjustments and have the same kind of physicality that we saw from Miami. Play with a sense of urgency, and I just feel like we didn't see that a lot throughout Game 2, and it surprised me a bit. But then again, it's like, they've done this throughout the course of the regular season, so maybe we shouldn't be as surprised.
In the past, they didn't do it as much, I feel like, in the past, but it's been part of them to not have to give the ultimate level of effort and execution until they have to. And it's going to be interesting, what we expect out of Miami, the 2 games down there. You can go down there and just level them in both games. Then you're in a great spot coming home.
Yeah.
If it comes back 2-2 here, I'm just wondering at what point the series would come into a little bit of a doubt, because in whatever situation you're going down to Miami again for that Game 6, anything can happen there that sets up a Game 7. Injury, an anomaly shooting night like this. So that's why I keep stressing, and I do think it's going to get to that point because of the respect you give the Heat, like you talked about. It's important that you don't get to that point, in my mind. I think you want to wrap this up in 5, as difficult as it will be.
I mean, I think anything can happen in general. Like, a lot of people are overlooking this matchup because of the regular season disparities, but they were 91% favor or 99% favor last year to win in the playoffs. I forget.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well,
and so,
a 3% chance for Miami, I think it was.
Yeah, like they're in danger, right now, in the sense that they could go home, you could go to Miami and lose both games. Like, I don't expect that to happen, but I think anything is on the table. I think at this point, there's no reason to overreact and go there, because dropping one game when they had a historic shooting night, I think, is not the end of the world. But yeah, I think a lot of different directions this could go. And honestly, the thing that stood out to me is, we talked about the Celtics being a different team than they were last year. Tonight they weren't, because they didn't really get much out of Porzingis or Drew Holiday.
It became a 3-point shooting
right,
contest.
and it ended up being, Jaylen Brown had a good night. Tatum had an okay night. It wasn't like they were the problem.
No.
But they didn't have much going around them. And that's been, this team has been constructed so that it doesn't have to just be Jaylen and Jason carrying them. Yeah. And tonight it looked like the Celtics from a few years back, not the team that we saw this year where everybody's clicking. I mean, Derek White had a good fourth quarter, but he was pretty quiet until then. We didn't get much from the bench. Peyton Pritchard didn't even attempt a shot.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah,
Took
we're
him out
looking at
completely.
it was not the Celtics team that has been successful this season, and I think that's what stood out.
Yeah, Celtics won the shot total, the offensive rebounding battle, and the free throw battle, but they missed 6 of those, which was a killer. So they did control some of the margins, Josue. So we'll see if it's just a 3-point thing at this point. If that comes back to earth, are they right back in control? What are you expecting from these 2 games in Miami? How do you think those will shake out?
I think the shooting, for both teams, they'll come back to earth. So I think it's going to be a lot more of physicality, defense, margins. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we get a game that's under 100 points, or one of the teams score under 100 points.
That's where the league seems to be going.
Yeah, for sure. And then I love it. I like the Celtics' chances in those situations, in that environment, especially in Miami. I think they do well. I just don't. The only thing that I'm worried about, or at least it's crossed my mind, is if they get back into that chippiness and someone gets hurt and then emotions get involved. We got a little bit of pouty Tatum in the fourth. Could we agree with that?
The referee thing, heads a little bit
that, and then also, if you remember when that whole thing happened in the regular season between Duncan Robinson and Jaylen Brown, I loved it. I was there. I was like, man, Jaylen stepped to him and said, hey, listen, stop that. But then Jaylen was borderline awful the rest of the game. You remember that? Celtics squeezed out that win. Those are the type of games where I'm like, if Miami plays that card, I'm not go going Scalabrine here and saying that, Eric
Code red.
Spoelstra is the one that's calling that, but that stuff just happens organically, especially when emotions are high. If they're not getting the call in Game 3, all of a sudden, like, one mediocre call turns into a technical foul, then the momentum swings. Like, I just think those are the type of stuff that's like, that just happens. That's happened so many times in Miami. And it wouldn't shock me if it happens again, but it doesn't mean the Celtics will lose that game, because that's not always the case.
And it benefits Miami if it goes
Big
in that
time.
direction.
They want that.
That's the thing.
That's what they
so when
want.
you're starting to get the
Yeah.
shoves and the grabbing the ball out of Hero's hands and all
Right.
that, like,
You think Martin was?
they're sitting there thinking Miami's
They were
glad this is
comfortable.
going
But you
there.
think
Yeah.
Martin had his
That's
feelings hurt when every single time he touched the ball, the crowd booed? No.
Oh, he
they
loved that. He loved that.
They love that. And you know what? The rest of his team loves it. It gets them all on the same page. It's as if every single one of the Miami Heat players are getting booed in the same way. Like, they take that personally, and it's like, oh, it's us against them. Like, everything came together perfectly for the Miami Heat in Game 2, and which is funny because, but it's supposed to tell us, like, we don't need to play perfect basketball. They almost did, Like,
Yeah.
they just have to play good enough, as he's put it. But it was damn near perfect in Game 2. I don't expect the same in Game 3. But then, hey, it's really going to come down to how the Celtics respond, and I think that's a big part of how that game's going to go, especially Game 3, the first quarter, what the Celtics look like in terms of just being physical. Man, like, I want them to be a bully.
They have to get into that space a little
They
bit.
have to, and if it calls for calling on Tillman off the bench, then so be it, man. I'm not saying like Joe Mazzulla has to go deeper into his bench, but if you need someone to go in there, grab some rebounds, give you 7-8 minutes just to give you something different, give the Miami Heat something different, then I'm for it, especially if you're on the wrong end of a double-digit deficit, for sure.
It'll be interesting, too. Terry Rozier on this trip.
Doesn't
No
look like your
updates
boy
on
Luke's
him.
coming back anytime soon, Bobby, so
Cornette
hope I'm
out
not
as
stepping on your
well.
toe, anybody's toes here with that take, but hey, I wouldn't mind it, especially in a series like this. Give me a little Tillman. I'd love that.
Seems like Jimmy Butler's out for the series as well.
Yeah, he's up
based on the reporting.
posting memes
so.
now and whatnot. Yeah, get well soon, Jimmy. Damn.
Yeah, so there's your health update. There'll be a practice, and then we're on to Miami. All of us going down. Noah going to be there for Game 3 as well. Josue
sir.
Heading down for the Miami games. So check out our coverage down there, Celtics All Access. Support our great sponsors who are a big reason we're able to do this kind of travel. pxg.com/Garden Report is going to get you a discount on your first order over there. Great golf apparel for on and off the course. Polos, hats, men and women gear over there. Check them out on both ends and get a nice discount when you use pxg.com/Garden Report. And then Nutrafol. This one's just for the men, Josue.
That's right.
If you're ripping your hair out over this game, I made that joke in the last video. Go to Nutrafol.com/men.
That makes it funnier when you say that.
.com
I know I did in the last video, but here it is again.
And yeah, just get a head start. That's Nutrafol's big thing. Before it's all gone, get a head start on treating that hair loss. Nutrafol.com/men for a discount on your first month over
And you
there.
don't have to tell anybody. You can just do it. Right?
Yeah.
People be like, "Well, your hair looks great." I'm like, right? I know. Like, it's fine, guys. You can do it.
He's Josue Pavon. She's Noa Dalzell. Check her work out at CelticsBlog.com and check out CLNS Media for continued coverage of the story for the series as it moves on to a Game 3 on Saturday night, 6 o'clock tip. Another nice early start, and we'll have post-game coverage of that after, as well as throughout the trip down to Miami. This has been a studio edition of the Garden Report outside the studio. We'll see you back there hopefully next week. Hey, Bobby Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS.